on this auspicious day. And you selected the topic because it's Sita's appearance day, right? Well, so much to say about Sita, and I thought I better narrow it down because otherwise won't do justice to the topic to say too little about too many things. Sita, of course, the eternal consort of Lord Ramachandra, but how she became the consort of Lord Ramachandra has a very fascinating history. That goes back before Sita was born, before Lord Ramachandra was born. And it goes to the time that Ravana was on tour, beating up everybody in the universe and challenging people and taking over kingdoms and doing so many things. So when he went to the abode of Lord Shiva to show his prowess, he picked up Mount Kailash with his so many arms. And Mount Kailash started to shake. So what did Lord Shiva do? He just pressed his toe on Mount Kailash and it crushed the arms of Ravana just with the power of his toe. And so eventually he figured out with his veins and his body bulging, he sang and pleased Lord Ramachandra, Lord Shiva. But Uma cursed him. Here's what it says in Ramayana. When Ravana lifted Mount Kailash, Uma became frightened and cursed him. Oh, wicked Rakshasa, a woman will one day become the cause of your death. There's a series of curses that went to Ravana. Another one was Vedavati's curse. And Vedavati means the power of Vedic speech, or the sweetness of Vedic speech, Vedavati. Vedavati was the daughter of a great rishi, and Kushadwaj Rishi was her father. Her father was the son of Brihaspati, the priest of the demigods. Do something with the echo and the sound back and feedback. Hello? He's fiddling. Okay, oh, you're doing it over there. So, Kushadwaj recognized that his daughter was very, very special. And because she was very, very special, he wanted that his daughter would marry only Lord Vishnu. And he informed her, this is what I want for you. However, various other personalities that weren't Vishnu would come, including demons. And the father, Kushadwaj, refused. So one particular demon named Shambhu, when he came and made this marriage proposal, and Kushadwaj said no, at night he killed him in his sleep. Kushadwaj was killed. And Vedavati saw it. And with her eyes, she glared at Shambhu and he burnt into ashes instantly. And when the mother, doesn't give the mother's name, but when the mother saw her husband, Kushadwaj, die in this way, she created a funeral pyre and entered into the funeral pyre, leaving Vedavati alone. So Vedavati, understanding the desire of her father, which was also her desire, she went deep into the forest in the Himalayas and engaged in austerities, and was a very powerful ascetic lady. One day, Ravana happened to be passing overhead and saw a single lady sitting in the middle of the Himalayas, engaging in austerities, and he came and started doing his charming thing, speaking very direct and bold and, harsh way of asking who she was. She explained who she was, and she said that I had, by my austerities, I am completely aware of who you are, what your intentions are, where you've come from and where you're going, and please leave me alone. And he didn't take no for an answer. He grabbed her hair. She uttered a mantra that stunned him for a moment. And using her mystic powers, using just her hand, it became like a sword, and she chopped her hair. And all he was holding was a pile of her hair. And she cursed him, saying, "I'll be born again and be the cause of your destruction. Just by your touching me, I've been defiled." So instantly, with her intensity of meditation, her body burst into flames, and all that was left in front of Ravana was a pile of ashes. So the way it's described in Valmiki Ramayana, he placed that pile of ashes in a golden box, took the golden box with him back to Lanka. And when he reached Lanka, he began seeing different bad omens. Narada Muni visited in Lanka. Narada Muni informed him the reason. The reason is what you did to Vedavati and the ashes of Vedavati, you should get rid of the ashes of Vedavati. So he did. He threw the golden box with the ashes inside in the sea. And according to Valmiki Ramayana, the golden box with Vedavati's ashes washed up on the shore somehow where the kingdom of Janaka was. And one day when Janaka was plowing a field, which is part of the procedure for a king when performing a yajna, he would plow the area where the yajna was going to be performed. And sure enough, from the furrow, a golden box came. And he opened the golden box. Inside the golden box was a golden baby, girl. So he accepted this is the divine arrangement for my wife and I to have a child, to have a young girl, have a daughter. And so he treated her in that way. So Vedavati part 2. But because she was born from the furrow of a plow, she was given the name Sita. Here's a nice painting of the emerging from the field that was being plowed, the baby girl. Here's another such painting. Doesn't show the golden box, but it shows the baby girl. And similarly, another painting. And so Janaki, another name of Sita, was accepted and treated with great care. And in course of time, we don't hear too much we hear this much even about Sita on the occasion of Vishwamitra Muni, after Lord Ramachandra took care of Tataka, the first demon, and Mricha and Sabahu. Vishwamitra Muni made a recommendation to Ram, please come with me. They were just ready to do whatever he wanted because that's what his father had said. Just whatever Vishwamitra wants you to do, you oblige him. So he wanted to bring, he had a transcendental purpose of bringing Lord Ramachandra to the kingdom of Mithila to enter into the contest of winning the hand of Sita. So when he reached, there was a grand reception and all of that. And in course of time, the long description of the lineages of kings, King Janak described everything, including the history of Lord Shiva's bow. The history of Lord Shiva's bow is described briefly here. There's two versions. There's a version that's spoken by Parashuram, and there's a version that's spoken by King Janak, both in the same Valmiki Ramayana, and they're slightly different. But that's okay. This is what Janaka says. Long ago, in a former age, the bow that was the contest for winning Sita's hand, belonged to Shiva, who became angry with the other gods when they had denied him a share of sacrificial offerings made by some sages. Shiva threatened him, saying, with this bow, I'm going to sever your heads. Stand ready on the battlefield. And they were very afraid. They petitioned Lord Shiva, we're very, very sorry. Please accept all of the offerings. And he was pacified. And he gave them the bow. And so the demigods received the bow, and Janaka's ancestor, Devarata, was given the bow. He was a king, given the bow by the demigods, and then handed through this descent of lineages of kings up to Janaka. So Janaka was now the custodian of Lord Shiva's bow. And he had decided that the person who would marry his daughter would have to lift and string the bow. Have you ever wondered why was that the criterion for? And it's not just right. It's not described specifically in Valmiki Ramayana, but there are commentators that have described the reasons, and there's 4 reasons that are given. 2 of them are very sweet, and one of them is very simple. When Sita was a young girl, her father wanted her to be trained, so he gave her some area to clean. And one of the areas that she had to clean included the area where the bow was kept. So she was very fastidious. So she would not only clean around where the bow was kept, but she would lift the bow with one hand and clean underneath the bow with the other hand, and then put it back in place. But this bow was a kind of bow that had to be carried on wheels, and according to Valmiki Ramayana, 300 men were required to pull the bow and with wheels on the cart to bring it out for the kings to try to pick it up. 5,000 robust men. And Sita picked the bow up with one hand and cleaned underneath it. So he figured, I can't have my daughter marry somebody that, she's stronger than. She has to be able to lift and string the bow. Another example, similar, is one time a ball got stuck. The girls were out in the field playing, and the ball got stuck. So she got the idea, we get the ball unstuck. She went inside, got the ball unstuck with the bow, and put the bow back, and they continued with their ball game. And another similar one. Now these are acharyas making comments. It's not Valmiki Ramayana. But there was a flowering tree that she had a very particular liking for a particular flower within the flowering tree, and that's how she got the flower from the flowering tree, by the use of the bow. And the other is very simple. Janaka understood that she is meant to be married to Lord Vishnu, and so this is something that only Vishnu can do is lift this bow of Lord Shiva. That should be the criterion. That's the simpler one, but the others are also very nice. And so, with all the narration and fanfare and procedures, the bow was brought out. Now, different versions of Ramayana say 30 men. This version of Ramayana says 5,000 robust persons were needed to draw the cart with 8 wheels, Valmiki Ramayana. And the bow was brought out on its cart. Ram offered his respects to the king, offered his respects to the bow, and very quickly picked up the bow, and not only, as we know, not only lifted the bow and strung the bow, but broke the bow. I like this painting because you can see the little girl holding tightly to King Janak by the doorway. That's Sita. Isn't that a nice painting? Of course, Sita had a sister, and this sister ended up marrying Lakshmana. Here's the BBT painting, where the bow was so big that when it was broken, the sound of the breaking of the bow knocked people over, because sound has power. And there's Sita, a little taller than that other painting, ready to offer a garland to Lord Ramachandra. And there's another B.G. Sharma painting, Krishna breaking the bow. And there's the cart brought out with Vibhishan. No, Vishwamitra Muni, excuse me, and Lakshmana giving their blessings. So that's the introduction to Sita, and then so much, because this is Sita's appearance day, so this is something about her appearance. The whole pastime of Lord Ramachandra is woven in and out and around, of course, the activities of Lord Ramachandra are connected with Sita. The activities of the personality Godhead are connected with his eternal consort. And then there's different descriptions. When over the Memorial Day weekend, if everything goes as planned, there'll be a gathering where we'll be discussing topics from Ramayana. Some people like that. Some people say, they don't like it. They want Vrindavan. But it's going to be Ramayana for that Memorial Day weekend. And one of the topics I'm going to be speaking about is specifically mysteries surrounding Sita. And, specifically Sita's so-called exile. She wasn't exiled. But, sometimes it's called Sita's exile. She, even after, so again, there's different versions of Ramayana, so it gets a little messy. But if leaving aside their different versions of Ramayana, and it gets a little messy, Ravana did not kidnap Sita from Srimad Bhagavatam perspective, from Hanuman's perspective. Some of you are aware, in the 5th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a series of prayers by Hanuman to Lord Ramachandra. In the fifth canto, in the section of the fifth canto that deals with cosmology. You like cosmology? A little difficult to understand, isn't it? Yeah. How about you? You like cosmology? You skip over it, right? Little by little, it's good to puzzle your way through it. In the Vedic cosmology picture of the universe, the earthly realm is in the middle planetary region. That's easy to say. And then there's 6 planetary regions above and 7 planetary regions below. 7 plus 7 is 14 planetary regions in our picture of Vedic cosmology. In the Bhumandala region, there's 7 islands and 7 oceans. And the central island What was that? The central island is Jambudweep. Jambudweep is a central island that has Mount Sumeru in the middle and 9 tracts of land. 9 tracts of land called Varshas. One of those 9 tracts of land is Bharat Varsha. Sound familiar, right? Bharat Varsha. And there's 8 other ones. And one of the other ones is Kim Purusha Varsha. Kim Purusha Varsha is where Hanuman resides for the duration of the universe. When Ramachandra completed his pastimes, he left, instructed Hanuman to stay behind. And that's where Hanuman is, with others engaged in glorification of Lord Ramachandra and his pastimes. So there's 8 verses in that section, 5th canto, Kim Purusha Varsha, where in 2 of the verses, specifically, Hanuman says very emphatically, it's not possible. It didn't happen. It's not possible that Sita could be separated from Ram, or that Lakshman could be separated from Ram. It's not possible. So he, in one sense, Sita was not separated from Ram, because one of the explanations, there's multiple explanations, I'm sure you know the primary one, is when it came time for Ravana to try to kidnap Sita, what happened? There was a switcheroo, meaning Agni gave a false Sita, took the real Sita in his care, and Agni kept Sita in safety while the false Sita, or Maya Sita, was taken. No one's confused, right? Not at all. So Vedavati became Sita, and Sita was taken by Agni for protection, not to be touched by Ravana, and a Maya Sita was taken by Ravana. So all of that emotion that Ram went through, and that Sita went through, and back and forth, it's a Maya Sita, but it's okay because Sita was safe. And then when Sita was returned, after entering into fire and all of that, and then Agni came bearing Sita, so Sita was proven to be pure. So Sita proved that her purity But then sometime later, as a good king would do sometimes, he would send spies or intelligence people to go out and hear what everyone is saying. Are they happy with the leadership? And so when one come and attend the Gita Nagari event, and you'll get much more detail than I'm doing right now. But there was a washerman by profession whose wife was away from home for more than one night. And so he began criticizing, I won't accept this woman back in the home. And I'm not Ram, I don't have the power that he has. But he was then criticizing Ram for accepting Sita back. Even she had proven herself. So when that message came back, the messenger didn't want to say it to Ram, but Ram pulled it out of him. And he explained what this fisherman is saying, or washerman is saying. So he sent Sita away. And then after the sons were born, and Valmiki brought Lava and Kush back to Ayodhya, Ram had not yet even met his sons because they were born in Valmiki's ashram. He came to understand who they were because after hearing the recitation of Ramayana that they had been so expertly trained by Valmiki, Valmiki revealed, these are your sons. And his heart just flooded open, embraced the boys, and his thoughts went to Sita. He wanted Sita to come. So Sita came. But Sita said, she thought, it was like a very interesting exchange in Ramayana, how it ends, how Sita's departure comes about. But even with all of this, people will still talk, and I don't want that Ram should be even thought of in a negative way. And so she prayed to Mother Earth in the same way that she had appeared from the earth. If any piety, charity, good deeds I've done, please accept me back. And Bhumi personified, the earth opened up and provided a seat for Sita, and Sita entered into the earth with Bhumi Devi, never to be seen again. I mean, it's emotion-packed. You get attached to Sita, and then what a finale. Ram wanted to join her because they're eternal. They can't be separated, right? That's what Hanuman said. They can't be separated. So it's Leela. Ram kept by his side a golden murti of Sita, exactly in her likeness, and he ruled with Sita by his side. And then suddenly, one fine day, that was it. Ram was leaving, and he just got up and was leaving and headed for the river Sarayu. And everyone understood his mood. He's leaving us. So they all followed him, except for one. He ordered that Hanuman stay behind. So the eternal associates of Ramchandra all left with him. Sita had left before then. So again, they're eternal associates. So all of these pastimes are for multi-purposes, churning of transcendental emotions, helping us to understand lessons of life in so many different ways. It was a big test for Dasarath to send Ramachandra, his 12-year-old son, to go to the forest to fight Tataka. and we're describing how powerful was Tathagata. No. Anyway, there's many, many lessons in scriptures to help us understand. And there's simultaneously a churning of transcendental emotions. I think that's something that's going to come out. When you hear a topic for a prolonged period of time, it has that kind of an effect. That the deeper mood or emotion, spiritual emotion of that topic becomes more acute or pronounced or more magnified. I don't feel really good about just doing a quick summary here of Sita's pastimes like this. Therefore, I'm encouraging you, if you can't come, join live stream. And if you can't join live stream, then hear the recordings, because the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra are very edifying, and they're like Krishna's pastimes, they're filled with transcendental emotion. They stimulate the transcendental emotion of the persons who are hearing, such that one's natural attraction, spiritual attraction for the personality of Godhead becomes awakened by hearing their pastimes. Janaka got what he wanted. He wanted that his daughter, Sita, born from the earth, born from a golden box, and opened the box, and there's a golden girl. And accepted this is the Lord's arrangement for us for a daughter, and raised her and so forth and so on. He was a powerful king, Janak. Powerful. Not just a virtuous king, he was a very powerful warrior. And gave protection to Sita in all ways. That best protection, in this case, turning her over to Ramchandra for marriage. And all the rest that happened after that. His brother and his brother's two daughters became a big four-way marriage. You all know that story. So this is Sita's appearance day. And we're giving some messages for remembrance of her and her relationship with Lord Ramachandra, eternal relationship with Lord Ramachandra. Filled with mystery. Trying to recall, I think it's in the 9th canto. During when the Srimad Bhagavatam is being written, it's mentioned that there are, I forget the number, somebody remember the number, something like several hundred versions of Ramayana at that present time. Someone remember? Someone can look it up in their, one of the early verses in the 9th canto describing Lord Ramachandra. And that was way back then. So many more versions and many more. Some have emerged as being more prominent and recognized and particularly loved. Of course, the gold standard is Valmiki Ramayana, but many other Ramayanas are also very much loved and breathed and lived by many, many persons. And there's a reason that the pastimes are charming. And we're dealing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead who appears in the form of a human, a king, but a human, and performing amazing pastimes with his devotees. lovingly. Yes.
I want to ask the question about Janak Maharaj.
About Janaka.
About Janak Maharaj, at least I'm not very familiar that, he's considered one of the 12 Mahajans.
Yes, he is.
And what are the pastimes which elevate him to that position? That if you could share some of those with us.
There's not, I'm not as versed in Ramayana as I am in Srimad Bhagavatam, obviously. I'm not aware of details of his exploits that earned him that special position. What's the question? You want to know what the question is? What's the history of King Janaka that has earned him the position of one of the 12 Mahajans? Say something more about King Janak, please. That such that he's now one of the 12 Mahajans. What is it about him that we know that says he deserves to be in that category? That's the question, yes? I don't know of the history. The only history that I know is what's in Valmiki Ramayana. There's very little in Srimad Bhagavatam. In Valmiki Ramayana, it's his prowess as a king, as a warrior, and an upholder of religious principle. When persons were in violation of religious principle, he would meticulously and very strongly put that in order. And he ruled in that manner, but other than that, I don't know much. That's a nice question. I'll tell you what I'll do. There are a few people that are absorbed in Ramayana. So I'll put that question out to those persons I know that are absorbed in Ramayana. And another one of the classes, I'll give a little summary of the response to your question.
This question is similar to her question, but it was, who was Sita's sister?
Urmila.
But because Sita is the eternal consort of Ram, so we can also understand that Sita is the same as Radha and Lakshmi and so forth. And so then we also know that Bharat, Shatrughna, and Lakshman are Vasudev, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha.
Yes. So they're consorts of those personalities. Urmila was the consort or wife of Lakshman. So, as with in the Puranas, it says one thing. So, what you just said is one of the things that it says in the Puranas. There's another. The symbols of Vishnu is another thing that it says in the Puranas. But for the consorts of Vishnu, for the manifestation, the personalities, the Chaturvyuha forms of the Lord, they have their consorts. So if your question is, who is Sita's sister? She's the consort of Lakshman, and Lakshman is Shatrughna, not Shatrughna, Lakshman is Sankarshan, and Sankarshan has his consort, his Shakti. So that's who Sita's sister is. In the Leela of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. Does that satisfy your question? Is that what you're asking? Kind of?
I was just wondering if, their names or anything is mentioned, right?
Somebody help me. Make a list of questions that I don't have answers to. There's probably persons that have answers to these questions. This isn't a field that I know a lot about, but generally I get the Stump the Swami question. I ask those people because they know. The names of Sankarshan's consort. Huh? I don't know. I don't know. Yes, Leelananda. Hare Krishna.
You mentioned at one point that some acharyas make a comment that was not in the Ramayana. How do we understand this based on the triangulation of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra?
It's simple. This is, there's a difference between speculation and revelation. And how do you make a distinction? That's kind of what you're asking. The authority for acharyas having their realization comes in Sri Brahma Samhita. Yadarshi yadarshi shraddha siddhi bhavati tadarshi. Not just in Ramayana, but in anything, different acharyas may have a different perspective on the same thing. So what's their credential is their siddhi bhavati tadrashi. The purity of their faith and fidelity to Guru Sadhu Shastra entitles them to realization. Things are revealed like Rupa Goswami, for example. There are things that Rupa Goswami wrote about that we're not going to find in Shastra. But we don't place doubt on Rupa Goswami. Why? Because of the direct empowerment that Rupa Goswami received from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was not engaged in creative writing. He was engaged in receiving revelation and sharing that revelation. Bhaktisiddhanta's translation of that verse, Yadarshi Yadarshi Shraddha, according to faith, Siddhi Bhavati. Now he translates in his word for word in English, Siddhi means revelation. Siddhi can mean many things. Generally it means perfection. It's mystic perfections, commonly. Siddhi Bhavati. Realization arises according to one's faith. So when one has attained the state of pure devotional service, they're awarded, part of what happens in that stage is realizations are imparted, revelations are provided to such persons. Here's a classic example. You probably know the story, but it's if some of you may not have heard that story. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was residing at Radhakund primarily for a long period of time. And he was a younger generation below Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So he looked up to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami as a perfected soul. And when he read 23 and a half syllables in the mantra, he never heard such a thing. There was a half a syllable. But how could Krishnadas Kaviraj write something that's not within scripture? So he was deeply, deeply, deeply pondering with faith in Krishnadas Kaviraj, and nothing came as a realization or an understanding, a revelation. So I decided if I can't understand that such a great acharya as Krishna Das Kaviraj wants the use of my life in a sincere way, he decided he's going to fast till death right here by the side of Radhakund. You know the story. So Radharani appeared to him in a dream and said, "Don't do like this. Go to the library, you'll find such and such a dictionary where it gives the rule where there's a half a syllable when this condition, that condition, that condition." And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami knew that particular book. Go find it in the morning and don't give up your life. Now, Radharani appears to him in a dream. So where's that Guru Sadhu Shastra? So there's some dictionary that has that information. But so according to one's faith and one's very strong determination to have clear and correct understanding of tattva, Krishna tattva, then realizations are provided to such persons, according to Guru Sadhu Shastra. So now, where's the boundary? How far can you stretch that? If one is not qualified, then we're not interested in the revelations or realizations of such persons. So then, what's the criterion for accepting or not accepting? That's what you can say. It gets fuzzy. So then, the standards of what's the criterion for pure devotional service? And when persons like Rupa Goswami or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or Krishnadas Kaviraj meet those standards, then we're okay. And we're very cautious otherwise. Good question.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
There is a critical edition of the Mahabharata. Do you know if there is a critical edition of the Ramayana?
Probably. I don't know. My guess is there are multiple Valmiki Ramayanas that aren't the same. Because you're asking, what's the real Valmiki Ramayana? What's the critical edition of Valmiki Ramayana? Well, Madhvacharya accepted other versions. Madhvacharya, anyway, we accept him as authoritative. He's the head of our sampradaya, and he accepted other versions besides what we know from my. He part of what I had to do, part of what I decided to do for this upcoming event is there's some statements that in Mahabharata, there's historical references of Ram's pastimes in Mahabharata. So Madhvacharya made a commentary on Mahabharata. And part of the commentary in Mahabharata is commentary part of the Madhvacharya's commentary on Mahabharata is taking passages from Mahabharata that are describing Ram's pastimes and describing it in different ways than we're accustomed to hearing them. Now, they'll go back to your question. Is there an authoritative version of Mahabharata is an authoritative version of a critical, what's the word, critical? Critical edition of Ramayana. It may not match what Madhvacharya had to say. And I came across a few things in preparing for this Memorial Day weekend. And I'm not super scholar, so I can't answer all those kind of technical things. All I can say is there are different authorities who accept different versions of Ramayana. These persons who I consider to be authorities, Madhvacharya being one of those authorities. And what he says is not in Valmiki Ramayana. Now, what is the specific reference? I'd have to go back and look it up because my memory is like a sieve. But the answer to your question is I don't know. Is there a critical edition of Ramayana? And one might say, if some scholars would agree yes, and some other scholars would say no. That's not the critical edition of Ramayana.
On the critical edition of the Mahabharata, there were many scholars working for over 20 years collecting manuscripts.
Yes.
And analyzing the dates. There's a prolegomena of Vishnu Sutkantar that's 400 pages, that's just explaining how they did it. It's a quite complex and detailed,
Yeah.
very serious academic work.
Yes. Good. I don't know the answer to your question.
That's fine. But thank you anyway.
Yes. Over here, behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, nice to see you.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just wondering if, why it was appropriate for Agni to care or take care of Sita, as considering that he wasn't her husband, and just like that.
I often wondered about that myself. And the only thing I could come up with, which isn't authoritative, but fire is pure. So his protection was through the agency of fire, not otherwise. So it's not exactly, I mean, an artist's portrayal is he's carrying her in his arms. But it's not necessarily that he was carrying her in his arms. But as fire is protective and pure, Agni, through the agency of fire, gave her protection and maintained her purity without violating her otherwise, even by, contact. He gave her protection, and through the agency of fire, which is pure. Now then, how did her body not burn if it's just fire? Body is spiritual. I mean, so there's questions like that, but the question you asked is a question that I've also thought, particularly by seeing the paintings, because an artist has to depict it. You've seen the paintings, right? There's the fire, and he's carrying Sita in his arms, and that's not her husband. So what's going on? It's an artist's rendering.
Thank you. And one more, if I may.
Sure.
And so Sita and Vedavati are two different personalities.
Well, they're two different names. Now, Vedavati introduced herself to Ravana as Vedic speech personified. She was given that name because she is. That's what it says in Valmiki Ramayana. Now, that's a feature of the Lord's Shakti. So she, Vedavati, is the Shakti of the Supreme Lord, and Sita is the Shakti of the Supreme Lord. So they may be manifesting different features of the same Shakti of the Supreme Lord. But it's the same personality in the sense of being the Swarup Shakti of Lord Ramachandra. How's that?
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's it? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki. Or